The auction of the Giantess. The night market was alive with cruel laughter and flashing lights. At the center of the square, inside a rusted iron cage, stood a towering alien woman. Her skin was pale like the moon, her eyes full of fear. She was a giantess, taller than any creature in that place. Chains wrapped around her wrists and ankles as if her size alone made her dangerous. Traders shouted to the crowd, their voices sharp and mocking. "She is too large to bear children." One cried, "Her kind is cursed, useless for breeding. Her body is strong, but her womb is empty. What good is a woman who cannot give life?" The crowd roared with laughter. Some threw scraps of food at her feet. Others shouted insults. "She's only good for slaughter." Another alien jeered, "Cut her apart and feed the beasts." The giantess kept her head low. Her long hair covered her face. She did not cry. She had no tears left. She had heard these words many times before, and she knew what awaited her. She would be sold for nothing, then killed like cattle. But hidden among the crowd was a man, a human. He stood quietly, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the cage. Unlike the others, he did not laugh. He did not shout. He only watched. The trader slammed, his staff on the ground. "Who will bid for this failure of a female?" He shouted, "She is strong enough to carry stones, strong enough to fight, but she cannot give you children. Useless for a family, useless for a clan." No one raised their hand. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by cruel whispers. "She's worthless," someone said. "Better to kill her now," another replied. The trader's face twisted in anger. "Fine," he snarled. "If no one wants her, then she will be taken to the slaughterhouse at dawn." The giantess closed her eyes. Her chest rose and fell slowly. She was ready. She had lived too long in chains, and maybe death was kinder, but then a single voice rose above the crowd, calm and steady. "I'll take her." Every head turned. The crowd gasped. The traders froze. It was the human. He stepped forward, his eyes never leaving the giantess. The trader blinked in shock, then laughed, harshly. "You? A human? Do you even know what you are asking for?" "She will eat you alive," someone shouted. "She's cursed," another added, but the human did not flinch. "I said I'll take her," he repeated. "Name your price." The crowd burst into chaos. Some shouted in anger, others in disbelief. The trader narrowed his eyes, sensing something strange in the man's tone. "Why?" the trader demanded. "Why waste credits on her? You cannot breed her, you cannot sell her, you cannot even control her. She is nothing but trouble." The human's lips curved in the faintest of smiles. "She deserves to live, that's enough." The crowd fell silent. The giantess slowly lifted her head. For the first time in days, her eyes met another's. She saw no cruelty in his gaze, no hunger, no mockery, only a quiet strength. The trader gritted his teeth, but greed shone in his eyes. "Fine human, she is yours. But remember, when she kills you, don't say we didn't warn you." The cage door screeched open. Chains rattled as guards shoved the giantess forward. She stumbled, weak from hunger, her knees nearly buckled. But she forced herself to stand tall, staring at the human who had spoken for her. He reached out a hand, not to strike, not to bind, but to steady her. The giantess flinched, her heart racing. No one had ever touched her with gentleness before. The crowd whispered in shock. Madness, pure madness. Why would a human save her? He'll regret it by morning. But the human ignored them. He led her away from the cage, step by step. The giantess followed, her chains dragging against the stone floor everywhere, eyes burned into their backs. But for the first time, the giantess felt something strange inside her chest, a flicker of hope. The night wind howled through the market, carrying the sound of her chains as she walked beside the man. She did not know his name, she did not know his reason, but she knew one thing. Her fate had changed, and the aliens who mocked her now watched. In silence, for deep inside, even they felt a chill. As if something important had just begun, the human's defiance. The market was still buzzing long after the human led the giantess away. Aliens whispered in corners, traders argued among themselves, and guards shook their heads in disbelief. Never before had anyone, especially a human, spoken up for one marked for slaughter. The human walked steadily, his hand still guiding the weak giantess. She stumbled once, her knees trembling, but he did not let go. To her, every step outside the cage felt unreal. For so long she had dreamed of freedom, only to wake in chains again. Yet now she was walking beside someone who had chosen her. Why? She whispered, her voice rough like broken glass. She had not spoken in days. Why save me, human? You gain nothing. He glanced at her, his face unreadable in the dim torchlight. You're alive. That is enough reason, he said simply. The words struck her harder than any whip ever had. She stared at him, unsure if he was mad or if he truly meant it. Behind them, the traitor shouted after him, his voice echoing across the stalls. You'll regret this, human. She is cursed. She is too large, too empty. She will bring you nothing but misery. The human stopped for a brief moment, turning his head. His voice was calm, yet it cut through the noise like a blade. Better misery with her alive than silence with her dead. The crowd fell silent again. Some scoffed, some looked away, but none dared to laugh this time. There was something dangerous in the human's tone, something that made even hardened traitors step back. The giantess lowered her eyes. Her heart pounded. No one had ever spoken for her like this. No one had ever defended her worth. They left the market square and moved into the shadowed streets. The torches grew fewer. The noise of the crowd faded. Only the rattle of her chains remained. At last, the human stopped near an old stone wall. Away from the stairs, he turned to her. Sit. You need rest. She hesitated, expecting an order barked in anger, but his words held no cruelty. Slowly, she lowered herself onto the ground, her chains clinking against the cobblestone. He opened a small pack slung over his shoulder and pulled out a piece of bread. It was rough, half stale, but to her it looked like a treasure. He held it out. Her eyes widened. She looked from the bread to him, waiting for the trick, waiting for the mockery, but none came. Eat, he said firmly. Her hands shook as she reached for it. The moment the bread touched her lips, tears stung her eyes. She had been starved so long she had forgotten what kindness tasted like. After she ate, she spoke again, voice trembling. You will not chain me again? He looked at the heavy iron around her wrists and ankles. His jaw tightened. Without a word, he pulled a small tool from his belt and bent over her chains. The sound of metal cracking filled the air. One by one, he broke them off. When the last chain fell, the giantess stared at her bare wrists in shock. The skin was raw, scarred from years of bindings. She whispered, almost to herself, Free? He met her gaze, his eyes steady. Yes, you are free. Her chest heaved. The words were too big, too heavy for her to believe. She pressed her hand against her heart, as if testing whether it was still real, but their moment was short-lived. From the shadows nearby, rough voices rose. Look there, the cursed giantess walks with a human. Catch them. The traitor will pay well if we return her. A group of aliens, half-drunk and armed with sticks, stepped out from the darkness. Their eyes glowed with greed. She's worth more dead than alive, human. Step aside and save your own skin. The giantess froze, her body trembling. Fear gripped her like ice. She had always known. Freedom was just an illusion. Chains would return, death would follow. But the human stepped forward, placing himself between her and the attackers. His hand rested on the hilt of a blade at his side. Come closer, he said in a low, dangerous voice, and you'll regret it. The men laughed, thinking him foolish. One sneered. You protect her? She's nothing. She cannot even give life. She is cursed flesh. The human's eyes hardened. Maybe she cannot give life, but she still has it. That's more than any of you deserve. The words burned the air. The attackers hesitated, unease creeping into their faces. For the first time they wondered if this human was truly just a man, or something more. The giantess, still trembling, looked at him in awe. His stance was steady, his voice unwavering. He stood for her when no one else ever had. The leader of the attackers spat on the ground. This isn't over, human. The market will remember your defiance. They melted back into the shadows, their laughter fading. Into the night silence settled again. The giantess sat in stunned silence, staring at the human's back. "You," she whispered. "Why fight for me?" He turned, his expression softer now, though his voice carried the same strength. "Because no one else will." Her eyes filled with tears. For years she had been mocked, beaten, chained, treated like meat. Yet now, someone had chosen her. Someone had defended her. For the first time, the giantess felt the spark of something she had never known: hope. First night of freedom. The road stretched into silence as the human led the giantess away from the noisy market. The night sky above was wide and cold, stars glimmering faintly. The air smelled of smoke from distant fires, and the only sound was the faint drag of her heavy steps. The giantess moved slowly. Her legs still weak from hunger and long years in chains, every step made her muscles ache. Yet she refused to collapse. She had been mocked too many times for being too large and too weak. She would not show weakness before the one who had saved her. The human walked just ahead, calm and steady. His back was straight, his steps confident. She studied him with quiet eyes, confused. 100 questions burned inside her, but she dared not speak. Finally, he stopped near a small ruined shelter at the edge of the path. It was nothing more than broken walls and a roof half fallen, but it was hidden from the road and safe from prying eyes. "Rest here," he said, dropping his small pack onto the stone floor. He set down a flask of water and another piece of bread. Then he crouched near a pile of wood, striking flint until a small flame grew. The firelight pushed away the shadows. The giantess sat, knees drawn close, her body still trembling. The warmth of the fire touched her face, and for a moment she felt human again, not cattle waiting for slaughter. She reached for the bread, but her hands shook too much. The human noticed. Without a word, he broke the piece in two and held it toward her. She hesitated, then took it. Her lips pressed against the rough bread, and she chewed slowly, savoring every bite. Her eyes filled with tears. She turned her face so he wouldn't see. But he did see, and his voice was quiet when he spoke. "They starved you." She nodded, unable to reply. Her throat was tight. Her whole body remembered the hunger, the empty nights in cages, the laughter of traitors. The silence stretched until she finally whispered, "Why?" He looked at her, puzzled. "Why what?" Her voice cracked as she forced the words out. "Why save me? You risk your life, you pay your credits, for me, for a cursed one." The human's eyes reflected the firelight, calm and steady. "Because I don't believe in curses, I believe in choices." She stared at him. The words made little sense to her. No one had ever spoken like that. In her world, fate was cruel, and her body was her curse. She had been told since birth that she was too large, too strange, too empty to matter. But here was a human saying she was not cursed, only different. The fire crackled. The giantess slowly stretched out her scarred wrists, no longer bound by chains. She touched the raw skin gently. It felt strange. It felt unreal. "Free," she whispered again, as if the word itself might break if she said it too loud. The human shifted, pulling a small blanket from his pack. He tossed it toward her. "Take it. The night is cold." Her chest tightened. She stared at the cloth in her lap. Too many nights she had begged for such kindness and been kicked instead. Carefully, she wrapped it around herself. The warmth was almost painful. It reminded her of something she had lost long ago. But freedom was not peace. Her heart still raced with fear. Every sound outside the ruined shelter made her flinch. She kept expecting guards to storm in, expecting chains to return, expecting laughter to echo in her ears. The human noticed. His voice came again, low but firm. "No one will take you while I stand." The words struck deep. She turned her head sharply, searching his face for lies, but his eyes did not waver. They held the same quiet fire that had stunned the traitors earlier. Still, doubt filled her. "You cannot fight them all," she said softly. "When they come again, they will come with more." They will not forgive you for shaming them in front of the market. The human leaned back against the wall, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade. Then let them come. I don't save someone just to hand them back. The giantess trembled, not from fear now, but from something else. She had never known words that carried such weight. The night deepened. The fire burned low. Shadows stretched long against the stone walls. The human closed his eyes for a moment, resting. His chest rose and fell in calm rhythm, but the giantess did not sleep. Her mind whirled with thoughts she could not control. Was this real, or was this just another cruel trick of fate? Would morning bring freedom, or death? Her eyes drifted to the human again. His face was calm, scarred but strong, his hand still near his blade, ready even in rest. He had chosen her when no one else dared. He had spoken for her when all others mocked, and for the first time in her long life she dared to imagine a tomorrow. But as the wind howled outside and the fire dimmed, she did not see the shadow moving in the distance. A pair of glowing eyes watched them from the dark. The hunters who had stalked them earlier had not given up. The giantess closed her eyes, clutching the blanket tightly. She felt safer than she ever had before. But danger was still near. The first night of freedom had only just begun. The journey together. The morning sun rose slowly over the broken lands. Its light spilled across the ruined shelter where the giantess and the human had rested. The fire had burned down to glowing ash. The air smelled of dust and smoke carried from the market far behind them. The giantess opened her eyes. Her first thought was of chains, of guards pulling her up, but instead she felt only the blanket around her shoulders and the quiet sound of the human sharpening his blade nearby. She sat up, confusion still heavy inside her. Freedom felt fragile, like a dream she might lose at any moment. The human looked at her, his expression calm. We move today. The market will not forget, and neither will those who watched us leave. The giantess nodded slowly. Her large frame shifted uncomfortably. She was strong, but the years in cages had weakened her body. Every step forward felt heavy. They began their walk across the rough paths that cut through the hills. Birds cried above them, and wind carried the smell of damp earth. The giantess followed silently, her mind restless. Crowds of travelers passed them on the road, aliens of all shapes and sizes, merchants with carts, soldiers with banners, and families with tired children. Every eye turned toward the towering figure of the giantess. Some pointed, others whispered, "Is that the cursed one from the market? She should be dead by now. Why does a human walk with her?" The words stabbed her, sharp as knives. She lowered her head, wishing she could disappear, but then she felt it. His presence steady at her side, his calm steps never quickened, never slowed. His hand rested near his blade as if daring anyone to come closer, and strangely the whispers faded. People looked, but none approached. Hours passed before the human spoke again. They look at you, but they don't see you. The giantess frowned, confused. What do you mean? They see what they want. A curse, a failure, a monster. But that's not you, he said simply. His words were not loud, yet they carried more strength than the voices of the crowd. Her chest tightened. She turned her face away, afraid he might see the tears threatening her eyes. By midday, they stopped near a small stream that cut through the rocks. The human knelt, filling his flask with water. He splashed his face, the cool drops sliding down his skin. The giantess lowered herself to drink directly from the stream. Her reflection stared back at her. Tired eyes, scars across her neck. A face too large for comfort. She hated it. For so long, she had hated what she was. She raised her hands to cover her reflection, but then she saw his reflection appear beside hers, calm and steady. He did not look away. She froze, her heart pounding, but before she could speak, a harsh sound shattered the quiet. Branches snapping, footsteps rushing, figures stepped from the trees. 5 aliens, the same hunters who had stalked them at night. Their weapons glinted in the sunlight, curved blades and iron hooks. There. One shouted, "The cursed giantess! Kill the human and take her back!" The giantess froze. Fear gripped her like ice, her hands trembled. She had no weapon, no strength to fight, but the human stepped forward, placing himself between her and the hunters once again. His blade hissed free of its sheath. His voice was steady. "Try it." The hunters laughed cruelly, circling them. "You think one man can stop us? She's ours. She was marked for slaughter, and you stole her fate." The giantess backed away, her body shaking. She could not breathe. Her mind screamed that it was happening again. Chains, cages, death. But then she heard his voice, sharp as thunder. "Stand. Behind me, I won't let them touch you." Her eyes widened, her breath caught. No one had ever spoken like that for her. The hunters lunged. The human moved with deadly speed. His blade flashed, striking the first attacker's arm. The man screamed and fell back. Another swung from the side, but the human ducked low, driving his elbow into the alien's chest. The hunter collapsed, gasping. The giantess watched in shock. He was only one man, yet he fought as if 10 stood beside him. His movements were sharp, precise. Every strike filled with purpose, but there were too many. A blade slipped past his guard, cutting across his arm. Blood ran down his sleeve. The giantess gasped. Her heart thundered. Something inside her broke. She could not just watch. She let out a cry that shook the trees. Her massive hand swung forward, striking one of the hunters like a hammer. The alien flew back, crashing into the rocks. The others froze, their eyes widened. For the first time, the cursed giantess fought. Back her body moved on its own. Her fists smashed against the ground, sending dust into the air. One hunter stumbled, blinded. The human finished him with a swift strike. The last 2 fled, shouting curses as they disappeared into the woods. Silence returned, broken only by the heavy breaths of the giantess and the human. She looked at him, blood dripping from his arm. Her voice shook. You are hurt. Because of me." He wiped the blood away, his face calm. "And you fought because of me." Her heart ached. She sank to her knees, pressing her hand against her chest. For the first time, she had not hidden, not cowered. She had fought. Not for herself, but for him, the human she barely knew, the one who had saved her. The journey together had only begun, but already their bond was something the world could not explain. And far away, the whispers spread through the markets and villages. The cursed giantess walks free, and she is not alone, hunted for her blood. The forest was quiet after the fight, but the silence was not peace. It was heavy, tense, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. The human tied a cloth around his bleeding arm. His face, calm though the wound was deep. The giantess watched with wide eyes, guilt pressing down on her chest. "You are hurt because of me," she whispered again. Her voice trembled like a child's. The human looked up, his tone steady. "I'm hurt because they attacked, not because of you." His words struck her heart. But her guilt did not fade. She had always believed her existence only brought pain. Now she saw proof written in his blood. They moved again, slowly through the woods. The human's steps careful, his eyes sharp. The giantess walked close behind him, her large body trembling. With every sound, she felt both fear and a strange strength after fighting beside him. By nightfall, they reached a rocky clearing. A stream ran through it, glowing faintly under the moonlight. The human set his pack down and built a small fire. The flames pushed back the cold darkness. The giantess sat close, the blanket still wrapped around her shoulders. Her hands shook as she held them near the fire. She wanted to ask something, but the words stuck in her throat. "Finally," she whispered. "Why do they keep chasing me? I was worthless to them. They mocked me, they starved me, now they hunt me. Why?" The human's jaw tightened. He fed another stick into the fire. His voice was low when he answered. "Because some don't see you as worthless. They see you as power." She looked at him confused. "Power? I am too large, too clumsy, too empty to give life. What power?" His eyes met hers, steady and serious. "There are whispers. Some clans believe your blood carries strength. They say it can heal wounds, or make warriors stronger. To them, you are not a woman, not a person. only a source of blood to spill. The giantess froze, her chest tightened, her breath came in sharp gasps. She shook her head. No, that cannot be true. But deep inside she knew the human spoke no lie. She had seen how the hunter's eyes gleamed, not with mockery this time, but with greed. Tears slid down her cheeks. Then I am nothing more than meat. Meat for slaughter. Blood for rituals. Her voice cracked. She buried her face in her hands. The human reached forward, his hand steady on her arm, his voice sharp like steel. No, you are more than that. You hear me? You are not blood in a jar, not meat for a knife. You are alive. And as long as you are alive, you are worth everything. She stared at him, his hand firm, his eyes blazing. For a moment she felt the chains of her past weaken. She wanted to believe him. She wanted his words to be true, but shadows moved at the edge of the firelight, a rustle in the trees, a flicker of steel. The giantess stiffened. They're here, she whispered. Dozens of eyes gleamed in the dark, hunters stepping out with torches and ropes. Their leader raised his hand, his voice cruel. The cursed giantess. Your blood will feed our warriors, your flesh will bring our victory. The giantess trembled, her heart racing, her hands shook violently. She wanted to run, but her legs refused. The human stood, blade drawn, his voice calm though outnumbered. She is not yours. The leader laughed. You cannot protect her forever, human. One man cannot stand against a clan. The hunters surged forward, rope swinging, blades flashing. The human blocked the first strike, his blade clashing against steel. Sparks flew, but there were too many. They pressed in, surrounding them. One rope lashed around the giantess's. Arm pulling tight, she cried out, falling to her knees. Her fear exploded, her mind screamed that it was over, but then her eyes fell on him. Standing tall, blood on his arm, firelight in his eyes. He fought without hesitation, without fear, and something broke free inside her. With a roar that shook the clearing, the giantess ripped the rope from her arm. The hunters stumbled back. In shock, her massive hand swung, striking one of them to the ground. Her foot crushed another's weapon beneath her heel. The human fought at her side, blades flashing, their movements strange yet natural, as if they had fought together for years. The hunters faltered, the leader snarled. She is cursed. She should not be this strong. The giantess's voice thundered back, I am not cursed, I am alive. Her words echoed across the forest, her fists smashed into the earth, sending hunters scattering. Fear spread through them, fear not of a curse, but of a woman who refused to die. At last, the leader shouted, Retreat! We'll take her blood, another time. The hunters fled into the dark, their torches vanishing among the trees. Silence fell again. The giantess stood shaking, her breath ragged, her hands covered in dirt and blood. She turned slowly, eyes wide, her voice broken. I fought them. I was not afraid. The human nodded, wiping blood from his blade, his voice calm. Because you are not worthless. You are stronger than they fear. She stared at him, her chest rising and falling. A sob tore from her throat. But it was not a sob of despair. It was something new, something like hope. For the first time in her life, she did not feel like cursed flesh. She felt like herself, and far away, in the camps of hunters, the story began to spread. The cursed. Giantess was not weak. She was dangerous. She was rising. The night after the hunters fled was heavy with silence. The fire burned low, flickering shadows against the stones. The giantess sat wrapped in the blanket, her hands trembling. Her body was tired, her muscles sore. But her heart was awake, beating faster than it ever had before. She stared into the flames, her voice low. They will not stop, will they? The human sat across from her, his blade resting on the ground beside him. He shook his head. No. They want what they believe you carry, and they will not forgive me for standing in their way. Her eyes fell, guilt pressing on her chest again. Then I have doomed you too, she whispered, but his voice was firm, steady. No, you gave me a reason, that is not doom. The words struck her, and for a moment she could not speak. The firelight caught his face, his calm eyes, and she wondered how a man so small compared to her size could carry such strength. She drew a deep breath, as if gathering courage. "There is something you do not know." The human leaned forward, waiting. She lowered her head, her long hair falling across her face. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "They told you I was worthless because I could not give children, but that was not the only reason. My people feared me, feared what I was." The human's brow furrowed. "Feared you? Why?" She closed her eyes, memories flooding her. "When I was young, I was larger than all the others. My size frightened them. And then, there was the night of the fire." Her hands shook as she gripped the blanket. "A great beast attacked our village. It burned homes. It tore through walls. The others ran. But I struck it. I struck it so hard the earth itself shook, and the beast fell." She paused, her chest rising and falling fast. "They did not see courage in me, they saw danger. They whispered that my blood carried power, that I was cursed with strength not meant for women. And when no children came from me as I grew older, they said the curse was real." The forest stretched behind them like a shadow that would never fade. For 2 nights the human and the giantess had moved without rest, following narrow paths, crossing rivers, keeping ahead of the hunters who would not stop. The giantess walked. In silence, her body was weary, but her heart carried something new, something she had never felt before. She was no longer only running from chains, she was walking toward something she did not yet understand. The human led the way, his blade always close, his eyes sharp. Every sound in the woods made him pause. Every flicker of movement made his hand tighten, yet he did not turn back. At dawn, the trees finally broke apart, and the world opened. Before them stretched wide plains of green, dotted with farms and villages. Beyond the fields, wooden towers and smoke rising from chimneys. The giantess froze. Her breath caught. She had never seen this place before, but she knew what it was. "Human lands," she whispered. The human nodded. "Yes, my people live here. If we reach the settlement before night, you will be safe." Her chest tightened. "Safe? Among humans? Look at me," she said bitterly. "I am too large, too strange, too feared. Your people will throw stones just as mine did." He turned, meeting her eyes, his voice steady. "Maybe, but not all. Some will see what I see, and that will be enough." She lowered her gaze, her heart pounding. She wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. They crossed the plains slowly. The villagers spotted them first from a distance. A farmer dropped, his tools pointing at the towering figure. Children ran to hide, doors slammed shut. Within moments, a crowd gathered at the edge of the village, murmurs rising. "It's a monster," someone hissed. "She's cursed," another whispered. "She'll crush our homes." The giantess flinched, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Her body trembled. She wanted to flee, to turn back to the forest, but the human stepped forward, raising his voice so all could hear. "She is not cursed. She is not a monster. She is with me." The crowd fell silent, staring. The human's voice cut through their fear. His calm, sharp eyes held them still. "She was chained," he continued. "Mocked, hunted, treated as meat. But she fought, not to harm, but to live. And when death came for me, she stood and fought." At my side, gasps rippled through the crowd, murmurs grew softer. Children peeked from behind their mothers, staring at the towering woman who now hid behind a blanket. The giantess's heart raced, her throat tightened. She wanted to speak, to say she meant no harm. But the words stuck. Then a small voice rose from the front. A boy stepped forward, holding his mother's hand. His eyes were wide but not fearful. He pointed at the giantess and said, "She looks sad, not scary." The giantess's eyes filled with tears. Her lips trembled. She lowered herself slowly, kneeling so the boy would not have to look up so far. For the first time she dared to smile, though it was shaky and fragile. The boy smiled back and the crowd's whispers changed from fear to wonder. The human spoke again, his voice firm. "She has no home, no people, no family who claim her, But she has strength. She has courage. She has heart. We will not cast her out. Not here." Silence hung in the air. Then one of the older villagers stepped forward, leaning on a cane, his voice cracked but clear. "If she is under your protection, human, then she is under ours, too." The giantess gasped softly. Her chest shook. She covered her face with her hands, but tears spilled anyway. They were not tears of despair. They were tears of something she had thought lost forever. Hope. That night, she sat by a fire in the village square, surrounded by people who no longer looked at her with hatred. Some still kept their distance, but others offered food. A little girl placed a flower in her massive hand, smiling shyly. The human sat beside her, quiet as always. Watching her with calm eyes, she turned to him, her voice breaking as she whispered, "You gave me life. But more than that, you gave me a place to belong." His lips curved in the faintest of smiles. "No, you gave yourself that. You chose to fight. You chose to live. All I did was stand beside you." She shook her head, her eyes shimmering. "Then, stand beside me always," she whispered. The human did not answer, but the firelight reflected in his eyes, steady and strong, and in her heart she knew his silence was not refusal. It was promise. The cursed giantess, once mocked, once chained, once marked for slaughter, now sat among people who looked at her not with hatred, but with awe. For the first time, she was not a curse, not a monster, not meat for slaughter. For the first time, she was free, and though the hunters might still come, though whispers of her blood might still spread, she would not face them alone. A new beginning had come.